Oh, hello there. I didn't see you come in. Folks, I'm Bruce Campbell. Welcome to Evil Dead Live. I guess we have folks from all over the world. Before we begin, I have a few shout outs because we had to put this thing together with the help of Wizard Entertainment, Tobin Entertainment, and Stellar Tickets. So thanks for all those folks. So how's this going to work? This is a commentary of the original Evil Dead. And the difference is I'm going to stop and start because I have a funny little device and I'm going to control this motion picture so that you get the full information, the full Scoopy-Doop. And we're also going to have questions from folks during the movie, and we can stop occasionally, periodically, and I'll answer some questions. If it's a jerk question, probably won't get answered. If it's an amazing question, hey, who knows? So here we go. Without further ado, let's begin with the Evil Dead. By the way, they're saying this is the 40th year anniversary. It's the 42nd year. We actually filmed the movie in 1979. I think it only came out, several years later. Thank you, Lionsgate, for giving us permission for tonight. The original title of this movie was Book of the Dead. And it was on all the prints and everything. And then we showed it to a sales agent named Irvin Shapiro, a very wise man in New York City. I'm going to pause it there for a second. And he said, you can't call it Book of the Dead because people are going to think they got to read for 90 minutes. So we came up with a bunch of names for it. Blood Flood, These Bitches Are Witches, 101% Dead. And then Irvin Shapiro came up with Evil Dead. And I thought it was the dumbest name I'd ever heard, but that's the name of our movie. Now this opening shot, just to give you an idea, this is an indie movie. People love to say indie. Well, what does indie mean? Indie means the opening shot of your movie is Sam Raimi with an Arriflex S 16mm camera, gaffer's tape to his hand, lying in a raft pushed by me with fishing waders on through a swamp in suburban Michigan. So there ain't no drone, ain't no Steadicam, ain't no crane. It's guys with rafts and tape. So don't be hitting me with that indie crap too easily. This is a movie that was raised with money independently in the great state of Michigan. You're going to hear the weird sound created by what we call the forest, a little piece of dry ice thrown judiciously there. We call this the forest. It's this evil entity that roams, and so we had to create a sound for it. So it's comprised of several components. It's got a drone, it has a wind, and then Sam Raimi has come in with his own voice and added accents like wow. So he'll add that, then it'll be synthesized. This is the 73 Delta 88, Sam Raimi's personal car. It's in every Sam Raimi movie he's ever made. Why? I suspect that something wonderful happened in that car, and he'll never forget it. So it's in all of his movies. We did errands around suburban Michigan. By the way, let's talk about a haircut. But I sat in that same seat during high school. So this is my high school car. So this is kind of weird that usually in a movie you rent cars and you've never seen them before. Well, in this case, I know this car very well. And it's in every Sam Raimi movie for whatever reason. So stylistically here, it's kind of almost a bowl cut. Why? I don't know. I think I had no sense of what I was supposed to look like. Betsy Baker has a Michigan State t-shirt. That's where Sam Raimi went to school. Yeah, there's a good shot of that. We shot this film in rural Tennessee. We were supposed to shoot in Michigan. The raising the money took way too long. And so we had to go south because it's normally, warmer in the south. So we wound up in Tennessee, which had one of the coldest winters on record, and Michigan had one of the mildest. So yeah, nailed it. But the movie was actually shot in a very rural area. And in 1979, you kind of knew it. I'm from Michigan, and as soon as you get south of Kentucky, things are just different. We didn't have all the same brands, the same, you know, all the chain stores. You started to get different names. You could get food, you could get moon pies, which we never had up in Michigan. So you get different products were different, the people were different, the cars were different, the taxis. So you really felt like you had gone on a distant location.
Don't blame me. Just steering
It turns out we really had. So coming up here, let's see, I think we have a little cameo from our director and our producer shortly here. Yeah, only thing that works, a lousy horn. Sam Raimi on the left, Rob Tappert on the right, the producer. And so, yeah, Sam, like Alfred Hitchcock, likes to throw himself in there occasionally.
I'll go to hell. I'm not honking at you.
Yeah, nice. Nicely done. Great acting.
Christ.
Hey, Scotty, what's this place like anyway?
This opening scene is pieced together. He now has moonshine in his hand for some reason. My reaction shot there looks like something's wrong. Well, I had just taken a sip of moonshine and passed it back. But that whole sequence was cut. So then when you recut it without that, sometimes you go, why is that actor looking like a sourpuss? And now you know why. Because I think Sam wanted to introduce moonshine in this car as they drove up. But if you think about it, you go, where the hell would they have gotten it? The whole idea is you don't get the moonshine until you get down. This was a real bridge. This was a gnarly bridge. And we got to kind of wreck it. It was an abandoned bridge in Tennessee. And I think we got permission from the county, maybe. Sure, that's it. And they let us sort of tear it up. You'll see, as the movie went on, actors had to leave. This movie was scheduled to shoot for 6 weeks. It took 12 weeks. So people had other obligations. So whoever's sitting in the passenger front seat there is not who it was supposed to be. We called that shemping. And throughout the course of this movie, there's a bunch of people who had to take the place of other people because it just took too long to make. So I'm going to play this here. This is outside of Morristown, Tennessee. And what's cool about this shot is it proves to you that this driveway is real and the cabin is real. You know, movies never do anything real. The driveway doesn't connect to the same house. The house isn't really where you think it is. But in this case, this was a driveway that was probably half a mile down. And you can see the sticks and branches hitting it. This is basically what it would be like to drive down this driveway. And to this wonderful cabin, surrounded by woods, in a hollow. And it was the real deal. Probably built sometime, I'm guessing, in the 30s. And there's some fun lore about the cabin. As we were working on this cabin to get it ready, we had to do a lot of work on the inside to get cow shit out of the inside of it and to take walls out and take ceilings out and get it ready for lighting, all kinds of stuff. A local came by and said, hey, just to let y'all know, if a woman named Clara, an old woman, comes by here, I just want you to know what that's all about. We're like, Clara, what do you mean Clara? He goes, well, when this woman was a girl, she lived in this cabin, and during a thunderstorm, some people were killed in this cabin, and she ran away and escaped. Well, now she's an old woman who lives in a rest home nearby, and every time there's a thunderstorm, she escapes and goes wandering around the countryside looking for the cabin, and sometimes they find her down at the cabin. So yeah, this was a haunted cabin, for real. It kind of helped the allure of it all. Questions, can you talk about how you guys cast the other actors? Sure, this is a good time for that. Rich DeManicore, the guy here, it's funny, he changed his name for the movie. He's Rich DeManicore in real life. His name in the movie is Hal Delrich. He was in the Screen Actors Guild union, wanted to sort of hide, so he was roommates with two guys named Rich and Del. He was Hal, so he became Hal Delrich. And there's another actress named Teresa Seaforth who wanted to change her name, second from the left, And so we made up her last name. So now she's Teresa Tilly. I'm in it because I was the producer, so we put me as the lead. Betsy Baker to the far right, we cast her from local auditions. And Ellen Sandweiss on the far left was an old standby of our Super 8 movies in high school. And I lost my virginity to her after this movie when I was 24. Put that in the bank. We modified this cabin. Our construction guy, Dart, Steve Franco, could build anything out of anything, and so he had his handy saw. So he fashioned this swing out front, and they sort of made the front bricks sort of look like teeth. I think Sam wanted the front of it to look a little bit like a cabin. As you can see, I mean, that's old wood with strange kind of plaster. Inside, when we were tearing the walls down, they had old newspaper from the 30s that was the insulation for the house. So it wasn't hard to imagine that this was happening, because it kind of was. And we were staying at a rental house probably about 4 miles away from there. And I don't know, it just made it real. We had to expand this main room. It was about half the size. There were 2 rooms, so we ripped a wall out. The ceilings were very low, so we ripped that out so we could put lights from up above, and we basically had to paint it, dress it. We had to create a trap door for it as well. This is the actual work shed. This was nearby. And so, again, this was not hard to imagine strange things happening in this work shed. We just dressed it up a little bit. And we were very conscious of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was right around the time of this first Evil Dead. They had scenes like this with all kinds of crazy crap hanging, where Leatherface would hang out, and I think this could have been inspired by that. Obviously, this is a foreshadowing of something that might happen in the future here. But this is a chance to get to know your cabin before everything starts. Same cabin location for Ash vs. Evil Dead. No, in Ash vs. Evil Dead, nothing was real. Everything was fake. Everything was a set. We went from basically Evil Dead, where the shotgun shells were real, to Ash vs. Evil Dead, where nothing was real. It was all digital at this point. So this is Ellen Sandweiss, longtime friend, old-time friend. We tormented all of the actors on the shoot. We, by the end of it, they weren't really talking to us, because I don't think any of us really knew what we were in for. We all read the script. Ellen read the script. She sort of knew what was going to happen, but the actual execution of it during the winter in a remote location where you don't have any money to really prep for that made it an extra special thing. Do you remember from Wizard World Louisville, I was the female Ash that got her harness from bondage store? Yes, I remember you very specifically. Wasn't this a school project for you and Sam Raimi? If so, what grade did you get? No, this was not a school project. This was real. We raised money from actual investors, and we have since paid them back handsomely. If it was a college production, I don't think we would have known how to share the profit. But, you know, there was actual contracts and paperwork and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah. Your physical humor effects call back to the silent movie stars. How long did it take you to learn how to take those falls? Well, this movie's pretty straight. We didn't get crazier with the character Ash in the movies until really Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. Because here's the shtick. In the original Evil Dead, I think Sam wanted the character Scotty to come off as the capable one. And then later, you know, right when the shit goes down, he's out of there. He bails, and now this kind of ineffectual guy is stuck being the hero. And it really is the story of Ash. And that may be the appeal or whatever. It's what appealed to me is that he doesn't know anything. I mean, listen to the guy. This is basically, this movie was as my balls were dropping. I mean, my voice is higher. It's great to be 21. I was 21 in this movie. And sort of learning the process of acting. Like, how do you act in a movie? You act bigger than normal, smaller than normal? I've been accused of sort of overacting sometimes, and my answer was, well, dude, how do you know how you would have reacted if you met someone who was possessed and bit somebody's throat out right in front of you? Maybe you'd shit yourself. You don't really know. So, anyway, this piece of music was done by the great Joe LaDuca, who scored all the Evil Dead movies. This was sort of reminiscent of a piece of music from Fantastic Mysterious Island, where giant creatures took over this island that was discovered by some guys in a balloon that landed there after the Civil War. Crazy movie, and there was a piece of music that we really liked, so we wanted Joe to replicate that, like when this trap door goes open. Like, this is big, really big. So as you can see here, the character Scott is he's sort of running the show, you know. Let me go check. I'll do it. I'll go. Let me check it out. How many times do you think you got hurt in the Evil Dead series? Well, a lot. I can say clearly every actor got hurt on this movie. I almost broke my ankle. My brother Don, who worked on the crew, fell off a cliff, probably about 20 feet. His shoes popped off. You know, I don't know what else happened to him. Sam Raimi was hit by a log in the head. Crew member Josh Becker jumped out of the rafters and landed on a 2x4 that had a spike coming out of it, and it went through his whole foot. We had to kind of help yank his foot off of it. He grabbed a bottle of Jim Beam and sort of disappeared for a couple of days. That was health care on Evil Dead. So we all got hurt.
Hey, Scotty, you find anything?
Multiple times, but you know, we kept shooting. It's the way it happened. The actors had early makeup prosthetics that the process of it was really unpleasant. Tom Sullivan did great work in this movie creating the makeup, but the process was horrible. We put a layer of Vaseline on, let's say, Betsy's face. She's going to get possessed later. We need a mold of her face, so we have to pour something that will create a mold of her face that then you can then sculpt from.
Give me a flashlight.
1979, the idea was to use plaster of Paris, which heats up as it sets. We didn't know that. So we have a thin layer of Vaseline on Betsy's face. It's on her face. It's heating up. It sets in about 15 minutes. We give her a piece of paper and a pencil in case, you know, anything goes wrong. Well, she's like, hey, how much longer? You know, getting lightheaded here. And we're like, oh, yeah, no worry, Betsy. It's soon. And then the other one's like, you know, getting very hot. Like, literally, how much longer? I'm going to pause this right here. Quick complaint about the shoes. Those are what? Not loafers? I'll think of the name. But I never liked them. Sam wanted them. He liked them. Hush puppies. I don't know what it was. So the other thing about Ash's costume was he wanted blue. That's a hero color. And he wanted black work pants. And in this case, I think they were corduroys. So he wanted that to be Ash's look, so it was timeless. That no matter when you showed this movie, it wouldn't look out of date. That was the basic idea there. But to get back to the injuries, basically every actor had to go through that. Well, so Betsy's time is up, right? So she goes, got to get out. So we go, okay, lean forward, and the gravity will take the thing right off your face. So she leans forward, and this thing pops off, beautiful cast,
Scotty?
and all of her eyelashes are in the plaster. She's lost them all. It pulled them all out. So how do you explain that or make up for it? You don't. And so, sorry, Betsy. We're better now. The process is way better now. You don't use plaster Paris. You use sort of surgical bandages. It's way easier. This basement is actually from Rob Tapert's family. We knew that in Marshall, Michigan, he had an old farmhouse, and in the basement was an actual dirt cellar with rock walls. So that's what we wanted. The cabin in Tennessee did not have any kind of basement, so we filmed this part in Michigan. And those drops are slowed down with the aid of Caro syrup to make them thicker. Sam wanted to heighten the effect of this. But it was a very, very effective cellar. There wasn't really much you had to fake about that, and we couldn't build any sets. So this was kind of perfect. We didn't have to do that much. We just had to hang these stupid gourds. Sam had a thing about these gourds. I think he liked them sort of floating around in the netherworld. They were creepy or something. So, you know, I think these doors were pretty much what they were. A lot of sound work in this movie. We did this in New York City after the fact. It was mixed in mono. It wasn't even stereo of all the crazy things. But we really wanted to pay attention because we felt that in horror movies, 50% is the visuals and 50% is the sound. So as we go through this movie, we tried a bunch of different things to startle the audience. And, you know, Coming Up is a pretty good example of you're going through, it's moody, you have a weird sort of sound, and then bang. We would add a little scare chord. We just call them scare chords. People call them jump scares now for whatever reason, but we would do a cymbal, a bang, some low sound. So we have about a dozen different sounds throughout this, just to make people jump. We found it was very important, so we paid a lot of attention to sound. There's also the sound in this basement, I think, is from, a little bit is from the movie The Third Man, an Orson Welles movie. It was the sound when they were down in the sewer system.
I bet this still shoots.
And I think we have a hint of it on this track during this, because we had a sound guy, Joe Macefield, in New York City. He loved movies, yeah, we gotta try this. So he was very much into sound as much as we were.
Oh, God.
The Book of the Dead, made by Tom Sullivan. The idea is that it's a book made from human skin, inked with human blood. Did you actually stay in the cabin while you were filming? Only after we had some power tools stolen. We went home at 1 o'clock in the morning to have lunch, because we filmed at night mostly. Came back and the power tools were gone. But the weird thing is, there's a $20,000 Arriflex camera sitting right there. They didn't need that. They wanted that saber saw. There's a $5,000 Nagra recorder sitting right there. They didn't need that. They took the drill. So we went, okay, someone's casing us out and they're stealing stuff. So we would take turns staying overnight in the cabin. And Sam picked a night, and I had to come down the next morning with groceries. So I'm coming down, and from the cabin comes a guy with a ZZ Top beard and 2 strands of bandoliers of shotguns across him.
Like you.
And I want to pause that there because that's going to remind me of a story. So what do? Rural Tennessee, guy's got a shotgun the size of his, 2/3 the size of his body. I think he killed Sam Raimi, and I think I'm next. So what do? So I thought, okay, I can run, I can throw the groceries at him and create a distraction, try and tackle him, get the gun away, and then do what? Kill this guy on his property? Not gonna happen. So I said, morning. And he goes, morning. And we just passed each other. I guess he was hunting back there in this draw somewhere. Sam Raimi was not killed, and we were able to film. This shot right here was when we're listening to this tape recorder that they found down in the cellar. And we all had seen Easy Rider and had heard that Jack Nicholson had smoked an incredible amount of marijuana before this one scene around a campfire. And so we thought, okay, you know what? Let's try it. These kids are supposed to be listening to this spooky story, smoking reefer. Sam thought, let's pass a joint around. Let's do it. Because when we got down to Tennessee, we told the local guy, Gary Holt, Gary, we need 2 things. That's my dad's Panasonic recorder from his work at the ad agency. I said, Dad, we need a reel-to-reel. Can I take it? He goes, yeah. We destroyed the thing. So we say we need weed and moonshine. And so we get that. I had never smoked marijuana. I was 21, never did it. So I smoked it for the first time during this scene, and basically everything went into 6-channel stereo. And I couldn't discern Sam's voice from what was happening. And there's only one shot of the whole scene that Sam kept because it was worthless, because everyone was stoned. I'm sitting on one elbow. I couldn't even sit up. you know, I was out taking a leak on the porch about a half an hour later, and I hear this conversation off to the right, and it's the sound guy, John Mason, who's very adult. And I could hear him saying to Sam, Sam, this is bullshit. This is not working. These actors are fucking stoned, you know. And he was right. So none of that's in the movie. But here we go. We carry on. Did Tom Sullivan do the art in the Necronomicon as well? Yes, Tom's a very talented guy. He could draw like crazy, really fantastical stuff. And he could sculpt and he could mold, and Tom was a one-stop shop, very handy guy. Did you ever feel like it was not worth it? I was just wondering if you ever felt discouraged. Well,
hey, come on, I just want to hear
it just felt weird
no big deal.
filming all night, and sometimes coming home on a Sunday morning. If I'm covered in blood, I can't get my outfit off. So I have to sit in the back of a white pickup truck that we rented, and I'll come back to that, and go back home covered in blood, looking like a serial killer in the back of the pickup truck. And one morning we passed everyone coming out to church, because don't forget, this is the Bible Belt in Tennessee. And as we were passing people, I mean, we were getting this from little kids getting in the car, grandmothers covering their faces, giving us looks of scorn and horror. And the only way to get it off was to walk into a hot shower with the clothes on and melt it off. And then you could get out of it. So, yeah, I didn't really know how bad Evil Dead was until years later when you worked on it like a normal movie. Special effects, these are mechanical effects, practical effects. We just dug a trench, put a light in there, put a red filter over it, pumped smoke into there, and had two 2x6s going like this with the leaves on top. So, you know, when you put a bunch of sound effects with it, what the hell? It's not that big of a deal. The old Panasonic's doing great. We didn't really have to worry about product placement back then. No one seemed to care. What props have you kept from the sets? I'm not really a keeper like that. My brother Don has the keys to the cabin for whatever reason. And he has the original shotgun from Evil Dead. Not because he is a movie buff, it's because he likes guns. So that's the reason there. I haven't kept too much. It would clog a warehouse if you really kept a bunch of that stuff, you know, and it's all fine at the time, but you know, after a while you get sick of it. Original cast baked and have them reenact the entire film for my birthday. Cost of meds and moon pies. No. The answer is no. The writing process, how many people were involved? Sam Raimi's the one who wrote, it's his story, based on the Book of the Dead, the Sumerian Book of the Dead. There is a Book of the Dead. Sam, of course, you know, created his own version of it, but the idea is they find this recording of a professor saying all the words. By the way, the professor was played by Bob Dorian, who was the original host of AMC movies. And so it's pretty funny, if you know Bob Dorian, or if you saw the early AMC stuff, it's Bob Dorian. And we came back later and we had to track him down because we wanted to use his voice again in Ash vs. Evil Dead. So pretty kooky. What was the cloud coming across the moon? Was that a shot with a fish tank in front of the moon? Yeah, there was some weird thing. We did some fish tank thing. In the original movie, there was kind of a box around it. It was sort of a lousy mat that didn't look that good. We have since, I think, fixed that up a little bit. We didn't go full George Lucas on this movie. You can still see, you know, green garden hoses and stuff like that. You can still see the raw edges, but not sure why I'm pausing this, but here we go. Did Sam really torment you by poking you? Yeah. We had a scene where I'm filming killing my girlfriend with a shovel up in the graveyard, and so I come gleefully running down the hill and jump and then land wrong and basically almost broke my ankle. So we have to keep filming, and it's a scene where I have to come in and check on my girlfriend because she was stabbed in the ankle. We'll see soon enough. And I can't walk, basically. Rob and Sam find this out. I turn around. Next thing I see, they both have sticks. I'm like, what are you going to do with those sticks? They start poking me in the ankle. And I'm like, what? And if you've ever had the type of situation where you can't believe what's happening to the point where you start laughing. So I start laughing because of the absurdity of my friends, my partners, poking a crippled man in the ankle with a stick. And they thought it was hilarious because they thought I thought it was hilarious. So you can pretty much see as I come into the bedroom, I'll try and point it out later. Yeah, my ankle's basically broken. This will be a callback scene. The music cue was called I Games. Later it'll be called Die Games. The necklace has my own little pet peeve. It's from Corey's Jewel Box at the Tel 12 Mall in Southfield, Michigan. And it's a piece of crap. I think the thing cost, $15. Sam wanted it because the magnifying glass, at some point later in the movie, Ash is trying to get his hands on the book. He's being attacked, and the fire is raging, but he can't reach it. Something happens, the sun comes up. He uses the magnifying glass to refract the sun through the magnifying glass to burn the book because he can't reach it. Cool idea. That didn't get followed through for whatever reason. And so now we're just stuck with a wriggly, ugly ass necklace, which is fine. It was gold and Sam wanted it silver, so we spray painted it silver. And in the close-up, if you look, my hand has silver shit on it because we sprayed it silver. So, yeah, high class. These were tough shots to get. We call this the force, the evil entity roaming here. Again, Sam is doing all the vocal accents. This is done with pretty much a 5.7 or a 5.9 millimeter lens, which if you double it to the 35 millimeter aspect, I'll pause it here for a second, is basically like shooting with a 10 or 12 millimeter lens, which is basically a fisheye. Good news is it creates a great look. Bad news is you can see everything. So we would see lights, we'd see crew members. We had to be really careful. We felt this movie's not really about sex. There's very little sex in the Evil Dead movies, but I think we felt somehow oddly pressured to have some boobies in it. So I think Teresa, God bless her, I think took a shot of something, went, all right, fine, fuck it, I'll take my shirt off, so we could have the obligatory topless scene. It's 1979. Every horror movie we ever saw had something like that. So apologize, Teresa. Unnecessary. But here we go. So the movie goes on. Have you ever lost your temper on Sam Raimi while filming a movie? Not really. Sam's light years ahead of any other director I've ever worked for, So it's hard to get mad at him because you're trying to keep up with him. He read the American Cinematographer's Manual. Most directors don't read those technical manuals, but he wanted to know how that camera worked in every aspect. You keep in touch with any of the other actors? Yeah, I see them at conventions all the time. They're all speaking to us again to some degree. I think they will all be providing voices in the new Evil Dead video game coming up. So we're going to kind of get a bunch of these folks back, which is nice. Of course, this is the type of scene in any horror movie where you go, bullshit, yeah, right. She's going to hear a noise and go out and talk to the woods. Who's out there? I know you're out there. It's a conceit. It doesn't really make any sense, but, you got to pick characters off. Things have to happen. So sometimes they have to be unnaturally curious, and that's the case here. So Ellen Sanderweiss will earn all of her money in the ensuing sequences here. She had to endure basically running through the woods at night during the winter in kind of a nighty/robe that then, she doesn't have anymore. So it was no stunt doubles. This is all Ellen doing all of her own stuff and paying the price. Which one of these movies was your favorite to film? None of them. None of these movies were fun to film. Very creatively satisfying, but physically nightmarish in every way, and it was great when they were all over. True that you had a set of clothes cracked or shattered because of the dry blood. Yeah.
I know someone out there.
I'd take my shirt off because it was horrible, and I'd put it on a kerosene heater. But by doing that, it made the blood, which was Karo syrup, turn into peanut brittle, basically, and I put my shirt on and I broke a sleeve off because it was basically solid sugar at that point. So we had to learn kind of not to do that, and we had to figure out maybe Ash should have more than one shirt. You know, in those days, we didn't really know how many you're supposed to have. Cool sequence with sound here. This is a sequence that is generally very disturbing to some. Reminder that the movie is unrated. There's no rating, because I don't think this movie would have gotten an R rating because of scenes like this, essentially. Technically, I was against the scene, but Sam felt that in horror movies, horror comes in every size and shape. So I'll let Sam explain whatever he wants to about this. It's obviously a very effective scene because this is really the first scene in the movie where people leave. Horror movies sometimes have that. They have a scene where people just get up and they can't handle anymore and they just take off. So this is one of them. It's not for the faint of heart, but there's some very cool effects here. We did a lot of cheap, low-budget effects, anywhere from having a pre-scored thing, which we just sort of cut with the actual vine itself and pulled it on the sides. We preset stuff, a lot of reverse motion in order to get the wrapping done. You had to wrap it and then pull it off, knowing that you were going to reverse it so it would look like it came on you. And there's all kinds of tricks to acting. That's good reverse motion. Acting in reverse motion is actually really difficult because if you're still at the start of it and they pull the vine off, you'll be active. When the vine goes on, you'll freeze all of a sudden. So you can't ever really stop your movement, so you have to pay attention. This was just pretty much an endless nightmare for Ellen for pretty obvious reasons. But boy, you know, I think it obviously lets you know that the woods were to be feared. I think that's the whole idea. But these guys aren't going anywhere, because she's the first one, you know, who actually left the cabin. And good things, you know, did not happen. So fortunately, she will eventually fight her way out of this thing. Any plans to come back to Scotland for a convention? We'll see how the world fares in the years to come. I was in that fine area a couple of years ago, so we'll see. Ellen's now on the move here, and this evil entity is coming after her. We laid out track that was plywood on 4x8 sheets, so that we filmed from a wheelchair, which was our dolly, and so the camera could be smooth, following her running through the woods. So she's in little slippers and her nightie here, racing through the woods and basically cutting the shit out of herself. And Rob Tappert sees a drop of blood. This is our intrepid producer. Sees her blood on the track and goes, "That's how you know the actresses are giving you their money's worth." You know, or he's a real softy, that Rob is. So I don't know how long it took to shoot this. Pretty interesting cinematics. You'll notice some of these follow shots are really, really cool. And they're done in the simplest sort of way. Like this sort of shot there. We had a 2x4 with a handle on either end, bolted the camera, which was a lightweight camera because it was 16 millimeter, which is an amateur format. So it's a lighter camera, bolted that to the center, and you could control it, go up to a bush, go over a bush. You could go like this, you could go like that. You had a lot of control of it. We also had a rig that was a full 2x4, and you could get one person on either end of it. And if you had that much space, you could go over bigger bushes and have lots of mobility. So a very handy device. It's very effective, but cost about $12 because, you know, that's all we really had. How did Ellen feel about this scene? I think she had issues with it for years, you know. How do you explain that as a soccer mom to your kids? And then mom got raped by, you know, the woods. We tried to make a joke, you know, she got Dutch elm disease, you know, as a result of the scene. Very funny. True that you duct taped the camera to a motorbike's handlebars. Well, we're not there yet, but I will. How do you feel about Evil Dead and the musical and its adaptation? Good. They did a great job. There's some funny numbers. This is a good sequence that just cinematically is just very fun. Can't get to the keys. You can never get to the keys. They're always stuff. It was a pretty cool pair of old keys. will you be making a cameo in the upcoming Sam Raimi directed Marvel movies? If I could comment on that, which I can't. Who voiced Join Us? Sam Raimi did. There's an early shot of the cabin, and you hear that, Join Us. That's Sam. He did a lot of random voices pretty much throughout the movie, because he likes to accent things. And it usually works out pretty well. Have you often got feedback or questions from other directors on the filming techniques? Yeah, I think directors are interested because the one thing that's kind of cool about this movie, good or bad, is that because it took 12 weeks, most low-budget movies, let's face it, are done in about 3 weeks. So we were 4 times that, and then we still were only about halfway filmed by the time we crawled away from Tennessee. What makes this movie different is the visual style. Sam was a magician in high school, and that's sort of how we met. And he likes doing tricks with the camera. This whole sequence is where he's really messing with the angles. And stylistically, we would do things that took 12 hours to get one shot for the whole day. We'd all be fired today if that's how we made movies today. But at the time, we had no idea how to pace it out, how to plan. Sam was very inventive, so we never said no, because we thought that's the director's job, is to, do inventive stuff. So Sam really, he pushed the envelope stylistically throughout the whole movie. Most horror movies are very bland, very generically shot. And so, it's kind of nice to sit back. It doesn't make it easy to make, but it makes it easier to watch. Why didn't you guys get the original actors from Evil Dead back for the recap in Evil Dead 2? Because we didn't own the rights to our own movie. Evil Dead 1 was released through New Line Cinema. Evil Dead 2 was done by Dino De Laurentiis, and we couldn't get the rights to our own footage. So Sam Raimi thought, okay, let's shoot it with different actors. The only problem is, the beginning of Evil Dead 2, you now think that Ash was dumb enough to go back to the cabin with new friends. It's not gonna let us leave. So a bit of a storytelling glitch. We did the same thing with Army of Darkness. That the beginning of Army of Darkness has Bridget Fonda as Linda, for God's sake. So it's all, if you get rid of all the recaps, the movies make sense. Like, I'm sure there's an edit out there where the end of Evil Dead ends, you cut to the vortex from Evil Dead 2, Ash lands, you play that movie, he lands at the end of that movie, you start Army of Darkness. So if you don't do any of the recaps, this story makes the most sense. We had to do a recap in Army of Darkness because that was made by Universal and they didn't have the rights to the other movies. So, sometimes things are weird creatively because they're weird legally. So sometimes it happens. Cool shot here. Looks like a normal car pulling up. But what Sam did is he tilted the car and the camera so that looks straight. But then when Ash gets out, he's cockeyed. So it's a very simple shot, but a very complex shot. Ash is not straight up and down there. He's tilted, and that's exactly what, Sam wanted.
Where are you going?
Fog was a major component of the movie. You had to have it. So when we weren't acting, we were running foggers, and they had these portable ones that used to put, I think, like horrible pesticides in them, but it was a canister you'd put the fog juice in, then it would run through a heating coil and hopefully turn this horrible liquid into a, basically a mist like that. And they worked great. And so we got really good at, you'd be up in the hills, you'd find out where the wind was, you'd get over on that side so it would blow down. We were moving around all night. You always had to move where the fog was. And sometimes these frickin' things would spit flame like a flamethrower, and we lit the brush on fire one night and almost burned the whole damn place down. So these foggers were not really trustworthy, but they were you had to have them. And I'm sure we wrecked multiple foggers by the end of it. Some of them we had to plug in, which really blew, because you're always pulling the thing out, or you can't get far enough up the hill, you wrap it around a tree. The good ones were the portable ones. They had the little propane jobbies. So that worked pretty good. This is the bridge that we actually did rip up. They let us do it. Funny thing is, because of how it's lit, you kind of can't really see it. But you know what the hell? Have you seen any horror movies recently you liked? I'm not caught up, so I can't comment. Having low budget play a significant role in not showing the big evil of the woods? I'm not sure what that means. When did you and Sam realize the one-liners as iconic trait of Ash? Ash did not evolve in any way until probably Army of Darkness. He's a timid guy. Greatness is thrust upon him in the first Evil Dead. Evil Dead 2, he's sort of a veteran. He's been through it before, but he's not really a trash talker. He's got a couple of one-liners, and then Sam was like, okay, let's just, take the lid off this thing. And by Army of Darkness, he's a full-on ugly American.
Okay.
So that's kind of his progression. I think it's kind of a good shtick here to reveal who's possessed.
Hey, Ash, I guess the
And,
card right.
what's cool is that
Yeah, truly amazing, Linda.
you see that Therese is
I don't know.
bullshitting
I think
her,
it's really some sort of extra
but
sense or
then
something, like ESP.
Ellen really knows what the cards are.
It's a 7.
Yeah, it's a 7. Oh my God, I can't believe it.
Queen
Yeah, now she gets it right. So, some cool elements here. Sam again uses some of his magician instincts here. It's a good transition. So, the eyes are not digital. The eyes are real. Scalero lenses. Swimmers would use them sometimes, but they cover the whole eye. I'll pause it there. 1979, these were very thick, very horrible. It took 2 people to put them in. Once they were in, you could only wear them for 15 minutes at a time because they didn't breathe. You'd pop them out. So we would pre-rehearse whole sequences, put the eyes in, and try and get a couple of shots before we had to take them out. And you could only do that about 5 times a day for the wear and tear in your eyes. I'm sure we abused that with every actor, but and we had them specially made with, the red veins in it, and it's tremendously effective. Now this gag, again, Sam being a magician, Ellen is actually on a teeter-totter that goes back behind the window. And she's sitting on a thing that's levering her up, and the window has a blackout that's hiding the pole. She's in front of the pole, so it's leveraging her up. Again, cool effect. There's no stunt guys, there's no rigging. We didn't have any way to fly an actor. We call that the elevator. And it worked. I think coming up, Rob Tappert can be credited with this injury. The idea was to create a devastating blow to one of the characters. And in this case, it's now going to be Betsy. And so Rob Tappert goes, you want to know what? Let's get her in the Achilles tendon. Because if your Achilles, it's the Achilles heel. You're toast. You're not going anywhere after that. Again, we're doing our own stunts here. We didn't really have pads, so that one hurt like a motherfucker. And we didn't know any better. Why couldn't they have had some neoprene shit? People would make fun of the weight of the bookshelves, it looks normal there, but then we faked some other stuff. See, he really just threw himself against the wall. There's no faking it. Yeah, I gotta pretend that it's heavy, and sometimes a little cheeseball. So again, no stunts. Ellen at one point bashed her head on the trapdoor. Fake falling in. So it's Ellen, doing all this. The actual hits in the face is a puppet, because that way you can actually just bash away with the accent. No big deal. That hand got a lot of screen time. We had a fake hand that was a classic rubber hand that we had used even back in our Super 8 movie days in high school. So we knew that hand could be very useful for stuff. So it's here throughout the movie. Then we even had a hand that was like a Playtex glove that we could fill with shit, so that when you smashed it with something, shit would come out of it. So we had some good hands. Did Ellen do her own demon voice? Yes, she did. And then we would pitch that down. We would harmonize that down, very much like, you know, The Exorcist, to make it scary and creepy. Best worst experience with crazy fans. Well, fans just think that you're, here's me on my broken ankle. I tried to disguise it the best I could. Fans just think sometimes that you like really creepy shit because you're in horror movies, which I don't really. So I've gotten poetry that was very disturbing, things like that, no big deal. Hardest shot in the movie to get? I don't know, that's a tough one. You'll have to tell me after you see it. We'll get your opinion on that. Again, very challenging concept here. Whose idea was it for Ash to go back in time for Army of Darkness? That would be Mr. Sam Raimi. We wanted to call it Evil Dead, Medieval Dead was what we wanted to call what then became Army of Darkness. But when that movie came out, Universal Studios didn't want Evil Dead 3. Why? We don't really know. They wanted a whole new name, so Sam came up with Army of Darkness. How'd you guys feel about them doing the heel in Pet Sematary years after?
And then in the morning,
I'm not really sure what that
get in
means.
the car. We'll take the bridge.
Were there any ad-lib moments that were unplanned but that you kept? In these early movies, as actors, we didn't really know. We weren't comfortable enough to do that. Now, with more experience, like by the time I got to Ash versus Evil Dead, yeah, there's a lot of ad-libbing because I was way more familiar with the character Ash, way more comfortable after you know, worn the guy for 40 years, you get familiar with it. So I would always challenge the writers at that point of like, folks, come up with the good stuff, or, you know, I'm gonna jump in there. Permanent injuries or scars? No, this scar in my chin was from childhood. I have a scar here from Army of Darkness, but you can't really see it. I got it stitched up that same night. I tried to flip a stunt guy down the stairs and my breastplate jammed into my face and cut it. So, but again, everybody got hurt on the Evil Dead movies. Prosthetics, you wore in Evil Dead 2. Did you wear the same lenses in your eyes then? Yeah, by the time Evil Dead 2 came around, you know, 7 years later, the lenses now were soft, so you could wear them longer. So the experience was still good, but it was my first time with the possessed lenses, and no matter how you cut it, you know, it blows hard wearing special effects makeup. This is the Ramo cam. This is a very cool shot. This is the camera. Basically has someone running with it with basically a T-bar, like smashing the window above the camera. So the camera is here, and someone was right next to the cameraman, Tim Philo, and basically had to smash the window. So that was the fun back then. There's really no faking breaking windows. We didn't have breakaway windows because you had to mold those, and you know, those were not cheap. So we just got real glass and broke real glass, and you just say to the actors, be careful, which is of course very absurd. This is some of the best fog in the movie. There's a couple of points where it just all came together. We got really good with this after a while. And there's just a couple sequences where it flows really well. There's some good graveyard stuff coming up here. The one thing I like about this movie, movies sometimes tend to get frantic, and they're afraid they're going to lose your attention, you know, as an audience. So they want to keep stuff going. And, you know, we're all for pace. I think we were all for that. But Sam Raimi was very clever about, after a really noisy sequence, there would be some really quiet stuff. And there's a great sound that permeates the interior of the cabin. Sam Raimi, Tamaqua is the camp where Sam Raimi went in his formative years, so a little ode to Camp Tamaqua. And I lost my complete train of thought. You said you'd never work with a first-time director again. Is that still true? Yeah, pretty much. Were you squicked out by any of the special effects? No, because I knew how they were done. You know, that's your job to get freaked out because we want to make it seem like it's real. That's the idea. How'd you guys celebrate when you eventually sold the film for distribution? We celebrated by paying our investors back. because they were all very dutiful people from Michigan, professionals, doctors, lawyers, friends, relatives. And we did not want them to lose their money because we thought it's part of the reason why we made a horror movie. In high school, we mostly did cheesy comedies and Three Stooges ripoffs, and we thought, okay, if we're gonna make a movie that gets into theaters, it's got to be a no holds barred. Let's make a horror movie. So that's really how we even chose to make this movie in the first place. And then Sam thought, okay, if we're gonna do horror, let's go all the way, because we didn't want to get lost in the shuffle. So this is some early creepy makeup of Tom Sullivan, not only a possessed creature, but a burned possessed creature. And it's a fun kind of creepy, you can tell. She does not like those things with her eyes, and who would? These are these grueling sequences. We had a number of grueling sequences in this movie where fight scenes taken. Okay, here's a new set of bookshelves. So this is the one that I'm mocked for. The original bookshelf was actually kind of a real bookshelf. So that was easy to fake. This one I'm sort of pretending that it's heavy, but it's not heavy. I realized my mistake. Now, I would have just made it seem like I'm half unconscious. It wasn't about being heavy. So that would have worked. So I failed, and there you go. And 42 years later, I still have to suffer the tortures of the damned. Cool sequence. Now we're going to show some blood. Our agent, Irvin Shapiro, advised us that the blood needed to run down the screen. Now, we did an early Super 8 movie to raise money for it. We would show investors this early movie called Within the Woods. And in it, I played the monster. And at what point, my hand is supposed to be severed because Ellen Sandweiss, who played the hero in that, almost severs it, and I'm supposed to pull it off. Well, it didn't work. While we filmed it, I put it up to my mouth and I bit it off, just sort of ad-libbing that, and it was kind of cool. We kept it. So when we did the actual movie, Teresa made sure to bite the rest of her hand off, which of course is plenty gross. This is Tom Sullivan's dagger, of course, with the hand attached. That's always fun. The dagger was made out of chicken bones, real chicken bones. And Tom lived in the laundry room at this house that we rented, and he had this collection of chicken bones and chicken parts, and his room started to stink like a dead animal because there was a dead animal. Sam, by the way, is doing the longest death scream in cinematic history. He did the death scream for that creature there. This creature is played by Rob Tappert's sister, Dorothy. At that point, Therese was not available, and we had to get some extra shots. So we got Dorothy because we thought, okay, she's covered with 400 pounds of makeup. It won't matter. Any concept ideas for the films that were scrapped that you wish weren't? Hundreds. As you go through these movies, a script, you write a script, but then when you film it, very often you have to make changes along the way. Ted Raimi's feet, Sam Raimi's little brother. I don't know why he walks like he has a pole up his ass, but this is the sort of thing that would happen as our actors had to actually leave and go back up north. We stayed, and Ted, who was very young at the time, had to have been like 13 or 14, were like, hey, put these pants on. So you're going to find that a fair amount through this movie, especially the more the movie gets in, because we kind of shot the movie in a way chronologically, which was sort of good. So big blood here. Interesting way to do these effects, because basically what you have here is a fake floorboard. On the left side is basically, I think we got a piece of salami, a big round piece of salami, and there's a real foot, so that's wiggling, but that foot goes under the floorboard and melds into a fake leg. So you can see it chop at the separation point, and the foot can react. So it's a great way to get the effect. This is where our agent, Irvin Shapiro, said, you gotta have the blood running down the screen. So Sam thought, okay, let's just have a monster's POV of blood running down the screen. And this sequence was probably one of the worst to film in the movie because of what it entailed. There's a lot of moving parts. Teresa had to have her actual head hair there with her body under the floorboards. I think it was Rob, and might have been her arm, her left arm, and Rob Tappert was one of the legs. And Rob got a horrible cramp, and she was freaking out, and it took so long to put them under the floorboards, we thought, okay, now we have to get them back out, but we thought, if we get them back out, we're gonna have to just put them back in again. Let's just shoot the damn thing. Misery be damned. So, yeah, this was easily, one of the hardest, but it's a great, weird effect. There's no animated aspects. It's all kind of real. And I think somebody else is under there pushing. That's Rob's leg, yeah, on the right there. So probably him twitching from having that. So, we had to get into kind of a little more dramatic stuff. The first Evil Dead is pretty straight. There's not a lot of joking around. Everyone thinks it's a pseudo-comedy, but it really is a melodrama, if you think about it. Very hokey lines of dialogue delivered by very inexperienced actors can sometimes be funny. How much your wardrobe was actor-owned. Ash's, we bought one set of Ash's stuff. I think we bought some basic stuff for everybody. But again, part of the reason for making a horror movie was back in those days, you could have a bunch of nobodies. First Halloween, no one knew who Jamie Lee Curtis was. Nightmare on Elm Street, none of these people. No one knew who Johnny Depp was. So you could get away with unnamed actors in a horror movie, and you could use regular clothes. They drive a regular car, and you don't have to have anything fancy. If we were done a comedy, we felt like we'd have to get like a John Candy or Steve Martin involved. So in this case, we felt we were sort of lucky in that we could do a low-budget movie if we did a horror movie. So that's sort of where that thinking comes. I just want to know about Bruce's cool outfit. Can I, a mere mortal, look like that? Yeah, because this is like $149, so it's not going to break the bank, but do not light a match anywhere near this. What was the white fluid that possessed, we're spewing? Milk. Yeah, we sort of wanted all different colors, so we had black, red, yellow, white. Yeah, so we got milk. This is obviously, here's a little bruise makeup. The actors had to do their own makeup, so this is my makeup job, which is a little over the top. I think something had happened and I got hit, so we were trying to do our own continuity of what it would look like. The principle of a bruise is like purple, red, yellow to show different layers of it. I thought I nailed it, but it's a bit much. My husband has a theory about the second movie that all of Ash's weaknesses is stored in his right hand.
What are you, crazy?
Okay, that's bullshit. Were there any concept ideas for the films that were scrapped? No. Were you guys working side jobs while filming? No. We had to devote all of our efforts to getting this thing made. According to our contract with the investors, we each got $35 a week for our troubles, but we never took the money. And I remember we went to like their version of 7-Eleven to get a moon pie, and we had to scrape together enough money. None of us, we didn't have any money. And as a producer, I'd go to the bank, and one day I got $10,000 out of the bank. And I smelled it, and it smelled like dirt. And I asked the banker, I go, why does this smell musty? She goes, well, around here, people still bury it in the backyard. So it was actually money that had been buried. I'm like, man, we are not in Michigan anymore. Can you explain Stephen King's role in the marketing of the movie? Well, when this movie was finished and came out, pretty cool effect here. So that's Tom Sullivan animating with Bart Pierce, who then came in to do some of this technical stuff. Stephen King saw the movie after it started to come out and the reviews were not that good of the movie. He saw it at the Cannes Film Festival in '83 and wrote a review in a local magazine. And in it, he called it the most ferociously original horror film of the year. And so we thought, okay, well, holy crap, can we use that quote? And I don't even know how we found Stephen King. Like, how do you find Stephen King in 1983? Because don't forget, in 1983, he was Stephen King. I mean, they were making all of his movies. We got a hold of him. Mercifully, he said yes, and we could use the quote. And it really did act as it was a force field of protection. Because the following quote, after his quote gets on the poster, was from the LA Times' Kevin Thomas, called Evil Dead an instant classic. So, thank you, Stephen King. He also helped with Evil Dead 2, by the by. We made a second movie after Evil Dead called Crime Wave, which bombed. And we thought we were doomed. So let's make Evil Dead 2. We tried to get the money. We couldn't get the money. Stephen King is making Maximum Overdrive in Wilmington with Dino De Laurentiis. We had a crew member that had to leave us because we couldn't pay her. She went to go work on the Stephen King movie. Starts talking to him. He goes, "What are you up to?" She goes, "I'm trying to, make Evil Dead 2. But these guys can't get the money." He goes, "Evil Dead? Evil Dead 2? I love Evil Dead." So he calls Dino De Laurentiis and says, "Hey, these guys need money for Evil Dead 2. Bam. So we had the money. It was the fastest deal we had ever had. How long did it take to film Evil Dead? Too long. It was supposed to be 4 weeks, became 12 weeks. Then another 2 weeks here, 3 weeks there. The special effects sequence at the end of it took 3 months. So all in, it took the better part of a year to just put this thing all together. It's a big hodgepodge. You worked on any of these actors again in a non-Evil Dead movie. Rich DeManicore here was in our second movie, Crime Wave, as a cop. I think we've run into these guys a couple different times. Was it true there's an animated Evil Dead planned in the mid-2000s? That's too obscure, I don't really know. Did you ever lose your voice with all the screaming? Yeah. Sure, but again, I was 21, green actor. You don't really know how to preserve your voice or how to even make it last. And you don't even know how to protect it by using your diaphragm. That's how most theatrical actors, they use the diaphragm, and they can talk all day. You know how a dog can bark all day? It's using his diaphragm, not his throat. So, yeah, I had to eventually learn use my diaphragm, not my throat. When did you realize the film was becoming a classic? We were just fortunate to finish the thing, and we were very concerned. I'll tell you when I was fine with all of this. I went to see this movie on a Saturday in my local theater, the Showcase Cinemas in Pontiac, Michigan, just like a regular movie. I went there to see like Poseidon Adventure, so this was my boyhood theater that I went to, and to see Evil Dead in my theater with all these other movies. There were like 20 people in the theater, but I didn't care. So for me, that's when I thought, okay, we did it. So everything really past that to me has been great, because the idea was, get this thing in theaters. Could you even do it? It seemed impossible. Rest in peace, Danny Hicks, the great Danny Hicks, who came to join us in the second Evil Dead. So yeah, great guy. You seem to be really into cinematography as an art. Do you have a favorite shot or frame in this movie? You'd have to probably ask Sam that, but Tim Philo was our director of photography, who was able to pretty much pull off the things that Sam wanted him to do. And it's tricky stuff. This was challenging in every respect, because the camera would freeze. Back in those days, the camera had to be connected physically with our recording device in order to keep the dialogue in sync with the picture, and that cable would freeze, so we'd have to undo it, put it by the heater, see if it thaws out enough, run it again, see if it says that it's syncing up. And so, it was sort of one foible after. You can see here, I'm a little weathered at this point, a little puffy. This is deeper into the shoot. And of course, at this point, some of the actors are gone. These are Ted Raimi's hands. And of course, it's basically you don't really know what's going to happen. So you go, Ted, okay, so you're going to punch through, and then eventually sort of grab my face. And so we sort of workshopped how this was going to go, but you never really know. So at some point, you can see pretty much, you know, pretty clear marks on my face from where his hand hit me in the face, but we didn't know. We were making a movie. It was exciting at the time. Did you expect Groovy to be such an iconic line? It didn't even come in until Evil Dead 2. And the reason why Sam used it in 1982 was because he wanted Ash to use a line that was so out of it, it was cool again. And in 1986, you didn't hear Groovy. Groovy, you know, the 80s was the Ronald Reagan era. You didn't say Groovy. The hippies were gone at that point. So that was Sam's idea to introduce it there. And it's kind of funny how we sort of just kept it around. Can you do this with all your other movies, like having you in my living room? No, I can't come into your living room every time. But folks, if this does work, there's a lot of movies that would be fun to sit on and sort of give you the inside peek. You know, I'm not really sure why everyone likes how the sausages were made, but, you know, here you go. Now, if you look at this scene carefully, inside, she's a Cupid doll, but when Ash carries her outside, she's a whole different creature. This was the first time we filmed Betsy possessed, and Tom Sullivan did a very specific kind of makeup, which I think Sam Raimi thought was okay, but he thought it would be better and creepier if she looked more like a doll rather than like a writhing, you know, heinous creature. And I think that's correct. Betsy plays a very convincing, creepy creature. Here's a big acting scene now, you know, where it's sort of almost monologue-y. And this is where you realize you're stuck with Ash, because Scott's toast. Said plenty of times before, you think Ash is a bumbling idiot. How do you feel about much fans seem to idolize the character? Well, Ash is you. Ash is the audience. You can sit there and go, bullshit, I wouldn't do that. And you're right. You are as smart as Ash. Ash has no special skills, no former FBI, CIA, which is what I love. When we did Ash versus Evil Dead, we got a note from our studio stars about how Ash was improperly handling the shotgun. Like he'd wave it in front of people's faces and all that sort of stuff. And our response was that we thought it was kind of funny that Ash wouldn't know that. He wouldn't know shotgun etiquette. He was never trained. So we kind of ignored the note because that wasn't Ash. This little sequence, this is where Betsy now, she's possessed, so now she's wearing the contact lenses, her own fitted lenses. But she's got a knife now. Now, sure, we shaved off the pointy edge, but, you know, this thing could still fucking stab you. So I'm holding my arm a little weird at the beginning of it because I'm hiding the cut. Because we wanted to kind of do it all in one piece. Ash turns from the window, she slashes down, and the rip is already in there with blood. Semi-worked. But again, the disconcerting thing is she can't see. So where she's slashing that knife, I mean, I have to be very careful. So we add a little shot of it ripping there. And, you know, to me, it's effective. The Evil Dead creatures, they like to torture their prey. So a little blood licking, and then she goes back at it again. So same thing now. Coming at me with a knife, and yeah, bashing the head, so there can be some future damage, bashing the shoulder. That was a real wall. Now, Betsy has pads here, but it's still her. It's still her that's jumping on me. Again, third attack with the knife. You bet I'm gonna grab that son of a bitch. Was the plan with the song she was singing, were you going for a Nightmare on Elm Street vibe? Yeah. Sam wanted like a bedtime story. This is a fun sequence. Those shoes are wallabies. I think that's what they are now, wallabies. And I got rid of them for Evil Dead 2. I said, Sam, I'm not wearing those stupid, I call them elf shoes. I'm not wearing those stupid elf shoes. I'm wearing boots. So from Evil Dead on, Ash had what I call proper. Sorry, there's milk, a little fresh milk for you. We just kind of wanted to mix it up. By the way, every poor actor in this movie had what we call the latex point, where they can't take it anymore. and they break down in tears or swear or go running away, tearing their clothes off or lighting their hair on fire because we pushed everybody past the envelope. And Ellen Sandweiss, God bless her, you know, I think she was first to crack with that makeup on her face that took forever, and then you're in it all day long. So it's not a happy feeling. This is a great example of a quiet moment before the shit happens again. And it's kind of nice. It lets your ears sort of get the ringing out. I think that's a Stroh's beer can. That was our favorite beer of Detroit. And these scenes, the quiet is important. A lot of movies are too frantic for no reason. This sequence, by the way, was edited by the great filmmaker Joel Cohen. Joel was the assistant editor of this movie, and Sam became good friends with him during the course of the post-production and editing, and found that Joel had some actual real skills. And so he said, Joel, why don't you cut the chainsaw sequence, which was meant to be sharp, crisp cuts, telling a very stark story. Again, it's a real chainsaw holding over Betsy's neck. I'm telling her, Betsy, there's not a chance in hell I'm going to drop this thing. But you know, really? Do I know that? So we turned the blade around backwards so it wouldn't do as much damage if it fell. So, you know, good Lord. But it helps when you're doing a scene because, man, there's nothing like the raw sound and feel of a chainsaw revving over someone's neck. I mean, you can see the vein pulsing in her neck. It's easier to act like you're freaking out or can't do it when you actually have the real thing that's buzzing away. Today it would have been digital. They'd put digital blades. It probably would have made just a whizzing sound. I'd have to imagine the chainsaw. And what's cool too, because this movie's not digital, that chainsaw noise is analog. So it's got a shred to it that it's hard for us to replicate in modern movies because there's something about being recorded on magnetic tape that has a certain dynamic to it. I didn't know you didn't have fun making these movies. You didn't? Okay, sorry to surprise you. Have you played or attempted to play any of the Evil Dead video games? Yeah, I suck. My son Andy's a great gamer. He's on Twitch, games all the time. I usually get killed in 32 seconds. There's some pretty good fog in this. I'm gonna call out the fog. We call them fog dogs. Pretty good fog work in this. This again was later on after various actors had to leave. So this sequence is comprised of several actors as we go. But this is what's called die games. Joe LaDuca then called this cut of music die games. So it's the looking back and forth of Ash thinking he sees something, turns back, she closes her eyes, he looks back, she opens her eyes. So this is a reprise of that, which I think stylistically is cool. It's a callback to when they were in love before she was dead, before my girlfriend was dead. Any horror films you watch now and think they borrowed this or that from Evil Dead? I don't know. Look, we borrowed from people. We all have influences. I think Night of the Living Dead was an influence because that was no holds barred. That movie was also barred at various times. This is a cool shot done with that rig, the 2x4 with a person on either end, the camera in the middle, because Sam wanted to track over the graveyard. So come on, Bruce, there you go, pick it up there, buddy. He wanted to be able to track over the graveyard and then come back over the grave, which is the only way you can really do that is to have two people on either end. So I think this is burying an actress named Barbara Carey with a fake wig on, because I think Betsy was long gone at that point. Again, good fog. It looks very organic rolling out of there. You don't want to get saucy with fog. You don't want to ever know where it's coming from. So the best fog, you're going to blow it out and you're going to fan it to kind of disperse it. But if the wind's behind you, you're good to go. Pretty cool camera sequence here. It's basically burying the camera, and you never really know how much you're covering. So we kind of just got lucky. You see this little shred of Ash's face, and then bam, that gets buried. So that's total serendipity stuff, but it was very cool. I'm going to get injured here during the course of this, and the same, there's that piece of shit necklace, Oh, Linda, poor Linda. So coming out of the ground was actually another actress, Cheryl Guttridge, who was in our Super 8 movies. She's coming out of peat moss, I think in Sam Raimi's basement at that point. So again, we had a lot of making up. This is Barbara Carey shredding my leg, and she got it worse than I did, because after the scene, I look over and she's kind of got her hand tucked into her dress. I'm like, hey, what's going on? You okay? And she shows me, she had these monster fingernails that, like claws. They were all bent back. And obviously were glued there, so probably hurt the shit out of her hand. But she said, oh no, I'm fine. So coming up here, Ash is using what we would nickname its murder beams. It doesn't mean anything to anybody, that term. But they are styrofoam beams made to look like a rustic beam. It's shaped 3 sides, so it's U-shaped, and you'd put them up in your crappy cabin to make it look like you had a rustic beam. But we loved them because they were fake. They looked real, but they were fake. You just had to be careful to not show the unfinished side. They only finished 3 sides, so if you pause in high def, you'll see how bogus the whole thing is. But Sam wanted, like, okay, there's these beams in the graveyard, and Ash is going to bash them over the head. So you could break these things without too much effort. But Sam wanted them to really snap. So I would be on one side of the camera with my It's Murder beam, and Sam would be on the other side. And he'd go action, and I would swing, and it would break. And then Sam would smash it on Betsy's head and shatter it. And Betsy would go, God damn it, Sam! And he'd go, oh, geez, I'm sorry, Betsy. I won't do it as bad next time. So we do another take. I break it again. Sam smashes it over her head. So at one point in here, there's a smash over the head, and Betsy just spits milk, like, right into the lens, because she's like, fuck this. And then the camera guy gets all pissed because she spit milk into the lens. So another one of these fun sequences, Again, there's no pads. Betsy's just falling back. The good old It's Murder beams. It's even breaking in my hands. You can see it half breaking. These things were, flimsy. And now in order to elevate me, I'm on a platform, and there's just 2 guys on either side, and then they just throw me. I don't know how many times I landed on that hard ground. Like, why didn't we dig it up? Why didn't we put peat moss or whatever? This scene is pretty cool because in one of the reviews, a reviewer said, can you have a scene that is really artful even when you're cutting off your girlfriend's head with a shovel? And the answer is yes. This is an incredibly artfully shot sequence with POVs and floating heads. And this is pretty disgusting. This is a fake head with a garden hose coming out of the neck. Betsy's buried in the foreground. A dummy's on me in the background. But basically, the garden hose is it's full of liquid and is spewing in my face. Sam's response, Wes Craven putting Evil Dead. Sam's response to Evil Dead on Elm Street is in Evil Dead 2, we took Freddy's glove and put it in the work shed. So they went back and forth. They communicated time and time again. So this is a sequence where I was so happy to be done filming, I jumped down the hillside and broke my ankle. So that worked out well. If you have a favorite Evil Dead movie, probably Evil Dead 2 if I had to, because we had more money, more ability, more control. We were sort of left alone, and we were just honing our skills. We were getting better as filmmakers. Okay, so now this is where I think the movie gets pretty interesting. Are you heading up the story type development of the Evil Dead game as well? We're involved, but we can't do everything. You got to leave it to the gamers to actually, exercise their creative abilities. So this wind sound in here, I think I was telling earlier, I'll finish the story. Sam Raimi's sleeping in the rented house, and he wakes up at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and he hears this. It's a very dead wind. And he wakes up the sound guy. We all stayed in the same house. He wakes up the sound guy, John Mason, goes, John, come here, come here. Listen to this wind coming through my window. And it was creepy as hell. So John recorded it, and they sat there. They got about a minute of that. That's all you really need. And we have it throughout the entire cabin. We have it in the Evil Dead remake from 2013. I think we used it in Evil Dead 2. I don't know if we used it in Army of Darkness. We used it in Ash versus Evil Dead. Whenever we're in a basement. Now again, we're losing actors here. So very often you'll find it'll be different people. That's Ellen. She's still there. That's nobody. This is Rob Tappert, the producer, in an outfit and a dumb wig. And this was this one hand. This was pretty good. This is sort of Playtex glove filled with, I think, glass and viscera and blood, so that when the shotgun hit it, like the glass would kind of help break it. And it's good. It really, yeah, it's a good little splattering effect. That little juicy sounds. Okay. We got to secure this place, man. And this is where the movie starts to pick up speed. This is where it kind of gets interesting. Shells. Where did I see those box of shells? What kept you coming back for Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness since they were no fun to film? They were very creatively satisfying. That's why you come back. I just have a theory that a movie that's easy to make is hard to watch. So you come back because you go make other movies and you realize, well, they were easy to make, but they weren't very challenging or satisfying. So I'll always come back to this, even falling down stairs with no pads and bashing your elbow on sharp-ass wooden steps. But yeah, I'll come back for that. So obviously we would film both of these cellar sequences at the same time, because you're not going to go somewhere else and then come back to the cellar later. You want to film it all here. So a couple of fun techniques here in this sequence. In order to pretend that the camera was up above the pipe looking down at Ash, we actually filmed into a mirror. That shot there is filming into a mirror that's his reflection. So it seems like we're above the pipe, but we're actually below the pipe, looking into a mirror, looking at Ash's face. This is why Sam Raimi is a good filmmaker. And so there's a fun little sequence here. Once all this starts going crazy, we're big fans of the Three Stooges, and A Plumbing We Will Go has a sequence where water was coming out of the electrical sockets because of how bad they screwed up. And water was filling up a light bulb in that comedy short from the Three Stooges. So we thought, let's do a horror version where the light bulb fills up with water. And this is more of an ode to Irvin Shapiro. Make the blood running down the screen. So in this case, this is the full homage to Irvin Shapiro, who's a man who helped us sell this movie around the world. We didn't know what to do with this movie until we ran into him. This is a fun little musical number. That was an old song from the 20s that I think Sam liked the counterpoint of it being this hopelessly happy, upbeat number while Ash is in the basement. And Joe Macefield, the sound guy, did a cool thing. Fast Lou Kleinman was the dialogue editor. This was a good relap of you hearing all the voices of how this sort of played out and how he got to this point. So it was a good use of dialogue editing by Fast Lou Kleinman. Now, of course, it's all, gotta go to hell. Same with the bulb. Any filmmakers you'd love to work with? I try not to do that, only because there's too many that I would be leaving out. You try and make everything that you do the best, and you try and have a good relationship with the director. So yeah, it'd be nice to work with a lot of different people, but I try not to torment myself. How does your son like you in this movie? I don't know, you'd have to ask him. I think he likes Evil Dead 2. I know he's done some screenings with Evil Dead 2 and had some fun with it. What were the reactions of the cast and crew when this became a video nasty? A video nasty meaning it was banned in Europe for a while. Germany just unbanned it about 2 years ago. So in certain countries they can have actual censorship. In the US, you can only give it a NC-17, but you can't ban a movie, and you can't make filmmakers cut stuff. In the UK, they could actually make them cut stuff out, and they could also ban a movie. So we had a court case, and we won, and everyone wanted to know what was this movie that was banned. So in 1983, it was the #1 selling video in the entire country, and like down at number 8 was The Shining. So this movie beat The Shining, so it's kind of funny. Thank you, Stephen King. This sequence has the coolest shots that took the longest time. Again, this is the type of stuff that was 6 hours to get this shot. Because Sam is filming this shot, and he has to hold himself inverted so that I'm upside down, and then he's tilting with me, and then he has to hold himself horizontally at the end of this shot. He's got it worse than I do at this point. Again, good fog work. This is the type of shot that takes for fricking ever. I think I'm up on a milk crate. We had to rip up part of the floorboards to get the camera low enough. And so you don't just bang these shots off. Sam also wanted to do an entire sequence. If you watch this sequence, almost every shot is at a 45-degree angle, one way or the other. And I know there was a lot of discussion of like, dude, is that going to be sustainable? Is it going to be watchable? Is it going to be too extreme for people to notice? And in my opinion, it's the most contemporary sequence in the movie because it just looks more modern because people tend to use angles like this a little more. But I give Sam a lot of credit. He's like, the cabin's going crazy, Ash is going crazy, the camera should go crazy too. This was our 12-hour shot. We mounted the camera up above the rafters, the actual rafters in the actual cabin, and the camera was on a sawhorse on a device that slid across the top of the sawhorse on duct tape that had Vaseline on it so it would move smoothly. So we could track with Ash as he walked across the entire cabin. So 12 hours later, we got one shot. But as a result, it's a cool shot. Coming up here with this sequence, in order to get a reflection in water that looked like a mirror, they basically had to have a light like 1 inch from my face that was blasting me with tons of f-stop so that the dark liquid could show my face so you could fake like it looked like a mirror for a little bit. So all you have to do is burn my face off. And this is the beauty and horror of making a low-budget movie in 1979 is there's no stunt guys, there's no armorer, there's no gun people. It's Ash with a shotgun. So you look out the window, and Tim was the camera guy, and you go, Tim, where are you going to be? And he'd wave his hand, and I go, don't be there, because I'm supposed to aim here. So don't be there. So basically, he had to turn the camera on, run like hell. I'd turn and just would blast the window out. No eye protection, no ear protection. So, but you can't hide the visceral aspect of blowing a window out with a real shotgun. There's just no faking it. So see those marks on my face are 100% real, caused by Ted Raimi in a sequence that we shot earlier in the movie where, you know, the hands come through the floorboard. We're basically all losing it at this point. We're almost into docu horror at this point. So it wasn't, you know, I had to kind of learn how to act during the course of this movie. But it wasn't hard as the movie went on to act weirder and weirder because we felt weirder and weirder. We're all completely wiped out. For your Within the Woods thesis film, what grade did you earn? It wasn't a thesis film. We used it to raise money. How'd you feel watching yourself in your movies? I'm great when I'm good, and I don't like watching myself when I know that I suck. But what are you going to do? The work that you do that's great as an actor, all generations will have it to watch. And unfortunately, the stuff you sucked in, well, it's there to see too. So maybe over time, when the whole oeuvre is taken, we'll be judged accordingly. Thank God for this necklace again. Same piece of music now, very hauntingly reminiscent. He's hearing like the echo of this music. What was your favorite physical stunt that you may not have enjoyed? Well, we just bashed into a lot of walls, but I don't have a favorite physical stunt. This is cool. Sam wanted, before this scare, he wanted to remove all the sound, like all music, all breathing, all movement, all footsteps, all crickets, all wind. So that you're thinking, and you're distracted, and then bam. It's a good rope-a-dope. You don't really know what's going to happen or when. I'm not sure whose hands those were at that point. Maybe Ted's. I think I would trust Ted's hands on my face because he would know that I would kill him if he hurt me. What do you miss about making movies back in the 80s? It was real. You know, a slacker can make a movie. Yeah, there's a green garden hose. A slacker can make a movie now with a camera you buy at Best Buy. You can buy a tower, a gigabyte of tower. You can make your own titles. You deliver a digital hard drive to movie theaters now. You don't even have to go to a laboratory. You don't have to rent cameras and get insurance for that. You don't have to process the footage from a lab. You don't have to have the footage run out on you in the middle of an important sequence. Nowadays, they just sort of turn it on, and because it's HD, it just sort of runs forever. So things were very real. You had to buy film. You had to process the footage. We had to send all of this footage from Tennessee. This is pretty cool prosthetic, I thought. Pretty good monster dummy head with gooey sockets that Ash could, you know, poke the holes out of. And kind of one thing that's misconstrued here is Ash pulls this plug out of Scott's side. Some people thought that was his penis. He's pulling his dick out, but no, it's not his dick. It was something that you didn't see clearly. It was a branch that was sort of sticking out of him after he said, "The woods, they're alive." So, what was the final scene shot? The final scene shot was almost the final scene, which we'll get to eventually at some point. Yeah, so now again, this is the floor of the cabin at this point. You can see me slide there. It was so slick, we would then take the ashes from the fireplace at the end of the night, which we would throw moonshine to keep it all big and luscious. We'd throw that over the blood to soak it up, but then the brown wood eventually over the course of filming just turned gray. So the floor became completely indistinct and sticky and gross and horrible. And that's what Caro Syrup was. You try and take your shirt off. Very clever. Tom Sullivan sort of designed that to look like a skull. You couldn't take your clothes off. You'd rip all the hair off your arm. So it kind of went with the movie. I think our fake blood is good, by the way. A lot of early movies, the fake blood's no good. This was a classic recipe. Caro Syrup. Take a full bottle of red, empty some of the Caro Syrup out, clear Caro Syrup. Full bottle of red, a couple drops of blue so it doesn't get too pink, and some non-dairy creaming agent like Coffee Mate. Mix it into a paste, put it in the actual bottle, mix the whole thing in. That way it's opaque, and then you test it on like a white surface, like a sink or a bathtub, and check the color. This is where Sam wanted to use the shtick of the morning sun coming through the window, but that didn't work, so he just used it like a lasso to grab the book, throw it in the fire, and then bada boom. Was it more fun to play evil Ash in Army of Darkness than the hero Ash? No, but bad guys are fun to play because you don't have to worry about being likable. You can just be a bad guy, so it kind of works out fun. This sequence was very cool, done by Bart Pierce and Tom Sullivan working in conjunction. They worked on the armatures together. You would take a frame at a time. So all this stuff is a frame, you move it a touch, a frame. Maddening filmmaking that these guys were good at. And then they would combine it, they would mat together two different pieces, and part of it was actually like actual moving like liquid coming out. So you couldn't tell. Sam likes to do a little bit of this, animation, but it's real. He wants you to look here, look there. And we used all kinds of gooey stuff. Alpo dog food was one of them. Because again, Sam wants it to get quiet here for a little bit. Ash thinks he hears something. You know, this is classic oatmeal, cream of wheat type stuff. You know, no big deal there. So I guess maybe everything's okay now at some point. It's a fun sequence. It's very, again, very visual. Sam's still telling interesting visual stories. That's Alpo dog food, right in the kisser. And, you know, the guts are all kinds of sausages and stuff. So, you go to the market and get your stuff. And that's another combination of live action with animation, which is, it's tricky stuff. This is a tricky shot. And for Sam to show shadows falling, and that was a strange inverted when the head bashes on the ground, it kind of explodes up at the camera because it was shot upside down. So when it hit the floorboards, it wouldn't go this way, it would go like kind of right at the camera. Again, very cool effect. We used Madagascar cockroaches. They were really big. We got them at Michigan State University. They would hiss at you if you tried to touch them. Because we thought, you know, cockroaches, it's all kind of, they're evil little creatures. We thought that was good. Again, Sam Raimi doing the join us. And that's good fake blood. I'm just going to say it again. And of course, I'm not going to put it in my eye. Everyone's like, oh yeah, it never gets around your eyes, I noticed. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I got to be able to see what the hell's going on here. So the idea is, of course, the aftermath. He's thrown the book on the fire. Everything's okay now. The sun is up. The birds are chirping. It's all okay. But I think the idea is, being a horror movie, a lot to horror movies is a rope-a-dope. It's a bait and switch. So you want the satisfaction of feeling like the hero won, which he did. He won. Good on you, Ash. But is that how you want to end it? And is that the most memorable ending? So I think the original ending of this was Ash walking away. And I think Sam was intrigued by the idea of, well, maybe the Evil Dead has the last laugh. So basically what you're going to see is the same wide-angle lens that was mounted to the front of a motorcycle driven by Sam. And he's going to come all the way through that cabin. And because it's the last shot that we filmed, he's going to smash into me. And at that time, 21 years old, yeah, go for it. It'll be a cool shot, probably. So here it is. Thing starts out. I think everything's okay, just looking at a simple leaf. This is way back behind the cabin. So this is, again, all the elements of the forest, the sound, the growl. Sam's doing accents for the trees as they go past. And in real time, going through this cabin, crew members had to pull a door, this one door splits, and whammo, blammo. Ash is gone. Come back with the happy music as a fun little counterpoint, and even by the end of the credits, we slow that down to a halt, and then just that dead wind comes in, because even the music dies in this movie. And very interesting sound thing, at the very beginning of the movie, you hear the sound of a fly coming and going. And at the very end, there's the sound of a fly coming and going. And Joe Macefield said, if you were a fly on the wall, what would you have seen? So that fly on the wall saw this movie. So it's a fun little audio thing to do. So I want to thank you all for joining tonight. It was certainly my pleasure to relive a movie that got me into the film business. I'm very grateful for this movie. I have no ill will toward this whatsoever. It's a crude movie, but, you know, we gave it the old college try. A lot of old pals in the credits here. The fake Shemps, meaning somebody who played somebody else that wasn't really in the movie. And I will always be grateful to the original investors in Detroit, for New Line Cinema, and for mostly the fans who have keep watching all the different versions, all the different sequels. And I hope to see you soon with Evil Dead Part 2. Thank you for your time. And the movie is over.